Hello! Howdy! Hi, everybody. Sam Goodman. Really fucking scary stories. Thank you for joining us once again today. Can you believe that it is our final episode of Season 2? I just want to take a moment to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for all of your continued support, all the love that you have shown us all over social media. It has been an absolute blast and totally my pleasure. Thank you for all of your messages, all of your comments, all the love, all the support. It means so very much to us. I can't thank you enough. Do me a favor, if you're not subscribed, if you're new to us, if you're tuning in and this is your first episode, you're catching the last episode of Season 2, so go back and listen to all of Season 1. Go back and listen to the rest of Season 2. It's really good and really fucking scary, if I do say so myself. Just to really start here, I can't believe that we're done with Season 2. Let me just throw that out there. This one has just been, it just flew by. It just flew by. We sat down, started recording this stuff, kind of piecing together what we wanted to talk about, and it seemed like I just blinked my eyes once, and then all of a sudden, here we are. We're at episode 10 of Season 2, our final episode. But let me throw this out there too. Let me say this. We are not completely done. I will say that because we do have some awesome post-season episodes coming for you. And then before the end of the year, in the fall, we have Season 3, which it's already in the works. I'll tell you, it's already in the works. We're already planning what Season 3 looks like, and that'll be in the fall, kind of coming up. Hopefully we can get a little Halloween-y, right? Maybe we can do some Halloween stuff. It'll be an absolute blast. But again, I just cannot believe that we are here, that we're wrapping up with our main episodes, and I hope today is just the cherry on top of all of these really fucking scary stories. So let's jump right in. Today, we're going to be talking about the life of Elizabeth Short and the Black Dahlia murder. Elizabeth Short was born on July 29, 1924 in Hyde Park, Massachusetts. Shortly after she was born, her parents moved the family to Medford, Massachusetts. Cleo Short, Elizabeth's father, was making a living designing and building miniature golf courses. When the Great Depression struck in 1929, he did what was kind of, what the cool guys did back then. Dun-dun-dun, cool guy alert. He abandoned his wife and his 5 children. Cleo proceeded to fake his suicide, leaving his car empty near a bridge, leading authorities to believe that he had jumped into a river below. His wife was left to deal with the hard times of the Depression and the tough times of raising 5 girls on her own. To support her family, she worked multiple jobs, but most of the Short family's money came from public assistance. And then suddenly, out of the blue, just kind of like, hey, what's up? She received a letter from her, I guess, supposedly dead husband. He had run off, RUNNOFT. He had run off to California. He apologized and told her that he wanted to come home to her. However, she refused to see him again. You go, girl. Good for you. Elizabeth, known as Betty or Bet or Beth, grew up to be a strikingly beautiful girl. She was always told that she looked much older than she actually was, in a good way, and she acted a lot more mature than other girls her age. Although Elizabeth had asthma and lung problems, her friends considered her to be super lively, like she was just the cool person out of the bunch. She was fixated on movies, which were the Shorts family's main source of affordable entertainment at the time. The theater allowed her an escape from the dreariness of ordinary life. So she's growing up, Great Depression, dad run away, not only run away, but then not only did he RUNNOFT, but he faked his own suicide only to kind of spring back up later and say, no, I just RUNNOFT to California, all's good, can I come back? And then again, fortunately, her mom's kind of like, F you, not going to happen. So Elizabeth had a strikingly rough upbringing. Others would describe her, though, as a China doll, that she was beautiful, that she had beautiful eyes, that think of them as blue, but sometimes they would change depending on the colors that she wore. Sometimes they would become more greenish. People described her as always being friendly, always kind of being the person that would light up a room, that she was sweet, that she was funny, that she was not stuck up, that she would always stop and chat with people and make them feel at ease. So Elizabeth Short had a really great reputation with those that were around her. They all had great things to say about her. Her hair was very dark, almost black. She liked to be admired, and no one really had any bad thoughts about her. People just liked her. A quote that I was looking at when I was kind of researching this, it just said, once you saw Bet Short, you just couldn't forget her. You just could not forget her. She was just that kind of person. So when Elizabeth was older, Cleo offered her residency with him in California until she was able to find a job. So Dad kind of stepped back in and he was like, hey, you can come live with me. Just, forget the whole suicide thing. Forget the whole craziness that happened way back when. I'll try to make up for it. You can come hang with me in California. You can live at my residence until we can find you a job. Elizabeth had worked in restaurants, theaters in the past. She kind of worked in the service industry, but she always knew that when she grew up, that she wanted to be a star. She wanted to move to California, and she wanted to be a star. Driven by her enthusiasm for movies, she basically packed up all of her worldly belongings and headed to live with Cleo in California in early 1943. It didn't take much time before their relationship became kind of strained. And there, who would have guessed? Again, Dad run away, fake suicide, ran off with Mom. Yeah, of course, no, everything would be hunky-dory. Her father would scold her for her laziness, poor housekeeping, her dating habits, and he eventually kicked her out in mid-1943, and she was ultimately forced to fend for herself. At this point, she applied for a job as a cashier at the Post Exchange at Camp Cook. The servicemen quickly noticed her, and she won the title of Camp Cutie of Camp Cook in a beauty contest. However, Elizabeth was emotionally vulnerable and desperate for a permanent relationship sealed in marriage. Word spread that she was not an, easy girl. She wasn't an easy girl, you see, which, good for you, girl. She had high standards, and she seemed to live up to those standards, but she wanted marriage. She wanted to find somebody. But over time, she became uneasy, uncomfortable at Camp Cook. I wonder why, right? All the guys going, well, she's not an easy dame, you see, and we need an easy dame around here. So she became uncomfortable, and she ultimately left, and she stayed with a girlfriend who lived near Santa Barbara. Elizabeth had her only run-in with the law during this time. On September 23rd, 1943, she had been out with a group of rowdy friends, raucous and rowdy friends, in a restaurant until the owners called the police. Elizabeth was underage at the time, so she was booked and fingerprinted, but never charged. The police officer felt sorry for her and had arranged to have her sent back to Massachusetts. It wasn't long, though, before she returned to California, but this time, she made her dreams come true, and she moved to Hollywood. In L.A., Elizabeth met a pilot named Lieutenant Gordon Fickling and fell in love. He was the type of man that she'd been searching for and quickly made plans to marry him. However, her plans were halted when Fickling was shipped out to Europe. Again, think about the times here. We're in the early mid-40s, World War II is raging, all that kind of sort of stuff. Lieutenant Gordon Fickling was a pilot, and he was needed overseas. Elizabeth took a few modeling jobs, but still felt discouraged with her career. She went back east to spend the holidays in Medford before living with relatives in Miami. She started dating servicemen. Marriage still on her mind. She again fell in love with another pilot, this time named Major Matt Gordon. So that's interesting. Lieutenant Gordon Fickling and then Major Matt Gordon. Sounds like she might have had a thing for the old Gordos there. He promised to marry her after she was sent to Indiana. However, Gordon was killed in action, leaving Elizabeth heartbroken once again. So at this point, just stopping for a moment to look back, Elizabeth Short had a really rough life. Rough is probably putting it lightly, right? She's born kind of into the Depression. Her dad runs away, fakes his own suicide. Then all of a sudden, when she becomes of age to kind of start working, her dad calls for her and says, hey, I'm back in your life now. Can we be cool? And then that relationship quickly fades. She finds work, and then she's basically harassed by the male workforce where she works because she's not easy enough for their liking. She falls in love with a guy. He's sent overseas. She falls in love with another guy. He's sent overseas. But even worse, he's KIA. He's killed in action right after they had made plans to get married. So she's just left heartbroken again at this time. She had a period of mourning where she told others that Matt had actually been her husband and that their baby had died at childbirth. Once she began to recover, she attempted to return to her old life by contacting her Hollywood friends. One of those friends was Gordon Bickling, so her former boyfriend. Seeing him as a possible replacement for Matt Gordon, she began to write him and met with him in Chicago when he was in town for a few days. She was soon falling head over heels in love with him again. She agreed to basically meet up, hang out with him in Long Beach before continuing to pursue her dreams in California of being in the movies ultimately. Elizabeth left L.A. December 8th, 1946 to take a bus to San Diego. Before she left, she had supposedly been worried about something. Elizabeth had been staying with Mark Hansen, who said the following when he was questioned later on December 16th, 1949, by Frank Jemison. Here's a transcript. Frank Jemison. While she was living at the Chancellor apartment, she came back to your house and got mail? Mark Hansen. I didn't see her, but she was sitting there one night when I came home with Ann around 5:30, 6 o'clock, sitting and crying and saying that she had to get out of there. She was crying about being scared, one thing and another. I don't know. While Elizabeth was in San Diego, she befriended a young woman named Dorothy French. Dorothy was a countergirl at the Aztec Theater. That's an old school. A countergirl, you see? She was a countergirl at the Aztec Theater and had found Elizabeth sleeping in one of the seats after an evening show. Elizabeth told Dorothy that she had left Hollywood because finding a job as an actress was difficult with the actors' strikes and everything that was kind of going on at the time. Dorothy felt sorry for her, offered her a place to stay at her mother's home for a few days. In reality, Elizabeth ended up sleeping there for over a month. Elizabeth did little housework for the French family and continued her late-night partying and dating habits. Kind of at the time, this was probably frowned upon. Looking at kind of what's going on now, she was just living a pretty normal, youthful life. But one of the men that she became enamored with was Robert Red Manley, a salesman from Los Angeles who had a pregnant wife at home. Manley admitted that he was attracted to Elizabeth, yet claimed that he'd never slept with her. The two of them saw each other on and off again for a few weeks, and Elizabeth asked him for a ride back to Hollywood. Manley agreed, picked her up from the French household on January 8, 1947. He paid for a hotel room for the night and went to a party with her. When the two of them returned home to the hotel, he slept on the bed. Elizabeth slept in a chair. Well, that's real nice of you there, Red. That doesn't seem very nice. Force her to sleep in a chair. Can we say D-I-C-K, dick, 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 kind of a little bit of a dick move, it seems like. Manley had an appointment in the morning of January 9th and returned to the hotel to pick up Elizabeth at around noon. She told him that she was returning to Massachusetts, but first needed to meet her married sister at the Baltimore Hotel in Hollywood. Manley drove her there, yet did not stick around. He had an appointment at 6:30 p.m. and did not want to wait for her sister to arrive. When Manley last saw Elizabeth, she was making phone calls in the hotel lobby. Manley and other hotel employees were the last people to see Elizabeth Short alive. As far as the LA Police Department could tell, only Elizabeth's killer saw her after January 9th, 1947. She was missing for 6 days from the Baltimore hotel before her body was found in a vacant lot on the morning of January 15th, 1947. January 15th, 1947, a morning to remember. It was a cold, dreary morning for L.A. Betty Bersinger, a local housewife, left her home on Norton Avenue in the Lemert Park section of the city. She was headed for a shoe repair shop and took her 3-year-old daughter with her. As the two of them walked up the street and approached the corner off of Norton and 39th, they passed many vacant lots bordering the sidewalks. When World War II struck, development kind of stopped, obviously, in the city of L.A., as it did most other places, as a lot of resources, they're being poured into the war effort, not necessarily building the next gen joint, you see. It was kind of stopped, right? Everything kind of stopped and everything focused on the war, so there was tons of vacant lots. Because the war had only ended a year and a half prior, construction was still slow and was just starting to start up again. This left the lots looking abandoned and kind of eerie. The city was just kind of shabby, which already had Betty on edge during this morning. While Betty walked along the sidewalk, she noticed something white among the weeds. She didn't think much of it at first, as many people would just kind of throw trash into the vacant lot. As she glanced at the object, she initially thought that someone had thrown away some store mannequin or something similar, and it seemed like an odd object to throw away, and it was even stranger that the mannequin had been left in separate halves. Betty continued to walk, yet something drew drew her attention back to the mannequin, or what she thought was a mannequin. Upon closer inspection, she realized that the mannequin was not a mannequin at all. It was actually a woman who had been severed in half. Betty gave a panicked scream and led her daughter away from the gruesome sight. She quickly rushed to a nearby house to call the police. Officers Frank Perkins and Will Fitzgerald arrived to the scene within minutes, and they noticed the naked body of a woman had been cut in half. They were able to confirm Betty Bessinger's story and immediately called for backup. The LA Police Department noted the woman's body seemed to have been posed. The woman was lying on her back with her arm raised over